All right, guys, we're back. Table support assembly. So this is the plate with some wheels that supports the table movement. So I got all the components out. Again, reference what materials you need. Get them all laid out there. I've done a few. Done one of the V wheels. So knock out your V wheels. Same as before. Push your V wheels onto the bearings. Don't forget your washer bearing on top. Should take a few seconds. Alright, got your four wheels. I'm going to go ahead and focus on the instructions so that you get this with the instructions. Place two T-nuts on top of this plate, or on top of the frame. So, 1, 2, hopefully it's in frame. Yes, it is. Okay. On the 240 or 2040, one T-nut in front slot. So that would be on the top front slot. So I put 3 T-nuts in this frame piece. Assemble the V-wheels with 2 bearings. So we already done that. Make sure the table support plate is properly oriented. 4 holes on right, 3 holes on left. I know this is a little confusing, but I would say these are the 4 holes on the right, 3 holes on the left. So it goes like that. I guess you could have looked at it and said it goes like that, but it goes like this. So how we're going to do this is basically these 2 T-nuts get lined up to each other, the front one and the top one and this one, so you can see kind of how that goes. You're also going to have a 90-degree brace that runs something like this, right? And that goes through this hole. Okay, so make sure table support plate is properly oriented. 4 holes on the right, 3 holes on the left. Send 4 M5 bolts up through plate corners. So we're taking these guys and we're sending these M5 by 35 or M5 by 25. M5 by 25s up through the plate corners. So they go up like this. Check. The next thing we do is we're going to add washers. 2 washers to each M5 by 25. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. We can pick these up. So we're adding washers. Check. Then we're going to add 1/4-inch spacers. We're going to need 4 of these 1/4-inch aluminum spacers. Add the V-wheels. So we got 2 washer, 1/4-inch V-wheel, and then a nut on the very top, M5 nut. Just make sure we get it threaded, get it started. All right, go through the other 3. 2 and 3. 1/4-inch nut last. 2 left. Just make these kind of threaded. They don't have to be tight right at the moment. Okay. Wheel plate. So as you can see, there's still 2 holes over here on the right, 1 on the left, and the wheels come up at us with the flat nuts on top. All right. Next, you're gonna make 2 belt guides using these. So how we're gonna do that is we're going to go through. Both of these are gonna go through a bearing. The last 2 bearings that we got. The next thing you're gonna add is a 1/4-inch space. Then you're going to add M5 nuts. And I would go ahead and tighten those. It's important that these are pretty darn tight, so they don't have to be crazy tight, but pretty darn. Tighten them up. Sharpen them, sharpen them, sharpen them. Alright, so these are belt guides. These guides are going through here, but they need a spacer. So don't get too far ahead. One spacer. Or not spacer, they need a washer. One washer. So you have 2 washers on the wheels and 1 washer on the belt guides. Those both go through. Your T-nuts are already in place, but this guy, one of these will have the front one that's by itself. That's the one that gets the 90-degree brace. So put the 90-degree brace in there, and then tighten this side. Don't make it too tight because you're going to want enough that you can adjust this brace, get it out of the way. And then you're going to take one bolt, one M5 bolt by 10 washer, and that's going to go on this side. So we've still got 2 loose ones that go in here and here. All right. So hopefully you guys can see everything that's happening. One thing I'm going to do real quick is line up these T-nuts with the bolts over here so that I've got a pretty good shot at actually hitting those T-nuts. Try to get them pretty accurate. Alright. And then just kind of set them down slowly and kind of search for the hole. I think we got it. On this guy. And if I'm lucky, I got this one too. Yep, looks like I got it. Alright. So it's not super tight, but it's in place. Lean it back, and this is your final piece. Miss that a little bit. Yeah. There we go. Send this guy through into that T-nut back there. Alright. This guy probably loosened a little. Now this is also one of those tightening, loosening, trying to get this guy just right. The distance here, you can check that real quick. What we know is that this is going to go in this direction. Make sure it's all in frame. Yeah, it's close. Okay. We know that this guy's going to hit right there. Well, you can see how this thing needs to be moved over to be centered to this guy. So it's obviously not quite in the right position. So loosen, loosen, loosen. Should be close. This is a bit tight. One of these is still tight. Okay, so if this sets in on these wheels, this should line up pretty darn close to where this switch is here. We could go a tiny bit further over. So if this is barely sticking out there, yeah, that's almost perfect. Yeah, okay. And I didn't slide this in, I just set it on top, guys, so you can just kind of feel it out that way. So the distance here, I would think that's about 25, maybe 22 to 25 millimeters. So right at an inch. It is also important that this is perpendicular to the frame. So do your best to make that so. there's a lot of adjustments that may have to be made in order to get that just right. If this isn't perpendicular to this frame, your parts will come out skewed when you're printing. For the most, and this can be adjusted down the road. You can pull the table off and you can go at these bolts again later. It's a pretty quick to access, so it's not, it's nice to get them now while you're in here, but you can kind of eyeball it and get 95% accuracy really quickly. This should be one of the last things that is adjusted. You'll have to come in back here with some needle nose, grab that hex, and tighten this here. This is my least favorite piece to tighten, but this absolutely has to be tightened. If this isn't tightened really well, the belt will slip up and down off of these pulleys, and that will slip between the wheel and the V-slot on the table rail. So make sure that that is good and tight, and make sure this one here is good and tight too. But this one over here is definitely the most challenging to get really good and tight. And periodically, every maybe 50 hours, you may have to retighten this specific pulley belt guide. So keep that in mind. If you notice some shavings collecting of rubber from your belt zipping back and forth, it's probably what's going on. So this guy needs tightened up. All right, so that is the table wheel assembly. Next, we're going to work on the ramps board. The ramps board should slide in something like that, and it'll be able to pivot downward. You should be able to slide it out and pivot it, so you can work on electronics this way. Slide this back up, pivot it in. We'll go have that in a few minutes. Thanks, guys. Clear.